Welcome to Life Coaching for Dance Studio Owners. Each week, we talk money, mindset, and self-care to help you live a more peaceful life and lead a more profitable business. Let's get started. All right, so today is a quickie episode, but it's an important one. And we often say in business, it's important to know your numbers. Usually that's talking about your financials, your customer numbers, your, profit margin, your percentages, all those things. But today I want to talk about one of the most important things in your business, and that is the number one. That can be a really dangerous number in business because that means you're the only one, or somebody is the only one who is responsible, knowledgeable, and able to carry out the task, whatever it might be. If you are a solopreneur doing all the things, the office, the marketing, the teaching, the choreographing, everything down to the cleaning, I'm sure you are in the struggle and you know what I'm talking about. It's when you are in DIY mode to the max and it's just you're doing everything. And this is why it can be so bad and so dangerous if you don't really consider it. It's because when you're caught up doing all these things, you're not focused, laser focused on any one area of your business in order for it to grow. So yes, your studio can grow. Yes, you can earn money as a solopreneur. And by that, I mean you do everything, right? But at what cost? And what are you missing out on? What are you not getting to? What is happening to the innovator, the visionary, the person who does that if you are so bogged down with doing so many other things? Then you clearly cannot focus in on what needs to actually get done because you just don't have the time. It's not humanly possible. Likewise, if you have a staff, let's say you have faculty, you have dance teachers plus yourself, not quite an office manager, but maybe you have somebody who helps out here and there. What happens is everything outside of the classroom then falls on you. And so you're still at number one. Number one being that you might be teaching, you might be choreographing, you might be taking care of the competition team, special groups, community performances, marketing, tax compliance, running, bookkeeping, working with your accounting and your tax filings. You're doing all these other things. And then when something simple like a customer service question comes up, it throws you for a loop, and you just do not want to have to talk to that parent. You don't want to have to face that teacher. You don't even deal because you don't have anything left in you. If you have office staff and you have dance teachers and you are the only one who can run the finances, who can spend the money, who can do the shopping for that special program, whatever it is, it still may be boiling down to you being the only one who's the administrator of the business. If you're the only one doing all the things in the back end, you're in the same exact position. Now, I mentioned different ways that we can find ourselves in this position of one. My husband always says, don't have a single point of failure, right? Like if there's only one person who can run payroll, what do you do if something happens to that person? If there's only one person who can run backstage and the lighting and the sounds at the shows, what do you do if something happens to that person? So we get into these places usually, and I'm going to say usually because it's not always the case, usually from this place of scarcity. It's, I don't have the money. I'm not going to have the money. I can't afford it. I'm not doing it. I'm not hiring anyone. I can't afford to do it. I don't have it. It might be, I don't have the time. I don't have the time to put together a job description, list a job, interview people, train them, try to get them to do it. And then it's just too much. It's too overwhelming and I can't do it. The other times we get into this place is when we're like, I can just do it all myself. It's not that hard. It's not that big of a deal. I'll just learn this thing. And while you're over here taking the next class on turning Canva into your next marketing machine or setting up AI, what are you missing out on by not having somebody else handle that? Right? Like you're spending time and money investing in your education, doing webinars and different things, and trying to fill in the blank for someone who actually does that as their job, right? You're trying to play the accountant when you didn't go to school for that. You haven't been formally trained. You're trying to build the props and the different things, but you don't have the skill set for that either. And so what happens is we waste our time because we think we don't have enough time. We waste our money because we don't think we have enough money. You see what's happening here, right? We get ourselves into this place of, I'll just do it. It's not that bad. And then we end up wasting. I remember there was a time when, this is, 2012, I want to say. And we had one of the first Silhouette Cameo machines, the vinyl cutters. And I was like, this is great. I'm going to buy this machine, buy the vinyl. I'll make our own shirts, our hoodies. I did the decals for our windows and the doors, with the business name on it. Water bottles, you name it. I was like, I'm going to make all this stuff. And then I watched a few videos, learned about it, downloaded the software, had the machine. And then I was like, oh man, now I need to get an account for a wholesaler so that I can purchase the shirts at cost, right? Because I want to get the shirts at cost because then I'm going to resell them. So now I'm working out like what are the best vendors for wholesale t-shirts. And once I get that, then I figure out, okay, which designs am I going to do? So now I'm spending time and energy finding the vendor. I'm spending time and energy on creating the designs. And then, I need a heat press. So then it was like, okay, which heat press? I've been through like 4 different heat presses trying to figure out the right fit because I'm making these things for the studio because I'm going to save time and money by just doing it myself and I'll get all the profits. Okay. So now I've done all this stuff and I still haven't made a dang shirt, right? So you see where I'm going with this. Like you get yourself down this rabbit hole and you think you're saving yourself so much time and so much money and so much energy. And actually what's happening is you're wasting it because the time that I spent doing those things, I was not working on my business. I was not looking at class profitability. I was not focused on training my teachers. I was not focused on these other things that would have moved the needle forward and grown the business. We're so focused in on these smaller things that we say, I'll just DIY, I'll do it myself. I can just do it. I don't have time to train somebody else. I don't have money to hire someone else. And then we end up spending more resources sometimes, or the same amount of resources, doing it ourselves and taking time from what our actual role is. And I want to address that for a moment because a lot of us don't really understand what our role is in our business. But if you're the founder, the visionary, the CEO, the director, the owner, your job is to grow a sustainable business that's viable, that's profitable, that's thriving, to take care of the financials, to be compliant, to take care of all the legal things so that you don't get the company in trouble. And, you have this great responsibility, but so often that is not what studio owners are spending their time on, right? You're not spending your time on identifying which direction you want to take the company in, using your vision to drive the marketing, to drive the mission, to drive the training. If you're not spending your time on that, who's doing those things in your business? That's where we get stuck. We get stuck because we're just doing all these other things because we're doing everything ourselves. And then the things that a job description would say a CEO does is just not getting done. So I'm sure you've guessed it by now. I stopped creating my own vinyl, putting decals on the doors and windows and making the sweatshirts and the hoodies and the tees and the water bottles, although that was a bit fun. And I found that I was actually buffering when I was doing those things, right? Like if I have a choice of reconciling a checking account or cutting some vinyl for some new t-shirts for the dance company, you bet the more fun thing is cutting those designs for dance company. So I let that go. There's other things that I was still doing on my own. Even after my studio crossed that 250K in revenue per year mark, I was still doing so much of the bookkeeping and accounting. And I literally had to just stop myself. Like, what am I doing? Why am I trying to figure out QuickBooks and get up to date with this? Why am I trying to save all this money? And it's just creating more strife and more work. And I'm not doing it well. And I hired a company, right, that does, the bookkeeping, checking on things each month, as well as, the annual filings for the federal government. I really urge you all to think about how that number one, knowing your numbers, that number one can be such a dangerous thing, because it can lead you down a path of your business falling apart and you're letting it happen. You're encouraging it to happen. So it might be that you're a solopreneur and you need to get help, and you need to maybe some volunteers who help out in the office, or maybe some volunteers who can help out in cleaning or with some of these other skill sets that maybe you don't have or not part of your job. Maybe you need to hire your first part-timer who just works 2 days a week at minimum wage. Something is better than nothing. So I don't want you to take this as I need to hire a full-time office manager. Most studios, they can't swing that yet. It doesn't make sense because of the size of the studio, the amount of work there is to do, the amount of cost involved in having a full-timer, right? You can't go from nothing to a full-timer, but make some baby steps along the way. If you're not a solopreneur and you are someone who has faculty and staff and you've got office team, really look at those areas that it's just one person doing it all. Even though those other things are taken in by other people, what is happening behind the scenes or not happening behind the scenes that your business isn't growing at the pace that you had expected or you imagined it would? If you thought you would have reached, your 100 students, your 500 students, whatever your benchmark is, right? But you're not getting there yet, look at your own schedule. Look at your calendar. How are you spending your time? Are there things where you're actively pursuing a path of training other people to take on new responsibilities, to have input, have responsibilities in what is going on in the business, so that there's not one single person? I really hope that you will take the time to consider this, because it can be a game changer for you. Hey there, it's Ginger. Thank you for listening to today's episode. Be sure to subscribe so that you never miss another episode, and leave us a review and a rating so that more people can listen and enjoy as well. Thank you so much.